G'day, Michael here. I've been playing around with this bruiser printer for, well, ever since I got it. I've had trouble with the feeder and hot end arrangement on it, and I've clutched together a number of parts from a number of different hot end designs. I've tried those various assemblies on the machine, and none of them actually worked satisfactorily within themselves. So what I ended up doing was pulling apart bits and pieces from each different design and making it my own combination. It's a little bit frustrating that when you buy things from a manufacturer, they haven't got, I don't know, they haven't resolved the design properly. It's like they about 80% or 90% develop it and then send it out the door without really testing the result. In any case, what I've done here is I bought in bulk these volcano blocks. So sort of, when I say bulk, half a dozen of them sort of thing, rather than just a single unit, and some tips. I seem to be settling out to a 0.6mm tip for the type of work that I'm doing because of the throughput I need to get done. And most of my parts are kind of solid and robust, sort of industrial parts rather than, fancy fine prints. Having said that, I get a reasonable print quality out of them. Look at that. Very hard this speed. You can see here the print area is 200mm square roughly, but it's getting along pretty quickly. So I'm very happy with that speed. It's having zero trouble keeping the melt happening. You can see the 250 degrees being held beautifully, even with a higher speed rate. Now it's a 0.6mm tip, so it's going through the material fairly quickly. And I reckon it could probably go through, looking at the way it's consuming material on this end here. I just told that. You see how fast it is or isn't going through the material. It's using up the material quite nicely. Okay, so it's going through the material quite well. But not only that, it's doing a proper melt. You can see it's a nice glossy surface. It's really ready for the next layer to bond on it properly. I don't have any problem with interlayer adhesion with this sort of melt. If you overpush your print heads, the interlayer adhesion suffers, but at the moment this looks like, even at this speed, I'm getting a good glossy melt, so I'm very confident I'll get good strong parts, and that's always very important for me. These are actually parts that are going to be holding toolboxes in a vehicle onto the wall, so they have to be strong, because a toolbox is probably weigh 30 or 40 kilos anyway. Alright, so the machine came with print hot ends like this, where you've got a small sort of 0.4mm tip, a very short block. Now, just to remind you what a volcano is relative to it, it's about the depth of the block, and so it's got it's probably around 3 or 4 times the length of melt, because half of this area here is not melt. It has to do with the heat break above. Now, with the heat breaks, they're lined with Teflon internally, and the heat break I've put in this guide is all stainless steel, so there's no Teflon left in this assembly anymore. So I will be able to, after having updated the firmware on the Arduino, I will be able to take this thing probably to 300 degrees centigrade, which will allow me to do polycarbonate and nylon and so forth a lot better. Whereas the Teflon lining, your ceiling is about 250, 260 degrees. So I'm hoping that when I next get a chance to fiddle with the firmware, I'll set its maximum to 300, and I'll have a bit of a play with printing nylons and polycarbonates and see how that goes. But that's another day. In any case, with hot ends, feel free to modify them. Don't be stuck with what the manufacturers give you. The other thing I wouldn't mind doing on this is actually having a reduction gearbox in the feeder. But this unit's good from the point of view I can increase the pressure quite well. Some of the hot end feeders, they don't have a very good delivery of pressure. Some feeders have like a reduction gearbox, others have a small spur wheel. So there's lots of different options, but I'm just, I guess, showing you to encourage you to play with your hot ends if you're not happy with the way they're behaving. Another silly thing that was with this feeder arrangement, there was no spacer here between the fan and this grill, which is quite odd, so I ended up printing some this morning. So I've got a spacer in that thing. Yeah. Well, I guess that's it. Feel free to like, share, subscribe, ask a question, leave a comment. Bye for now.